She didn't back off. Not when the chair splintered against the wall. Not when the switchblade, polished steel with a mother-of-pearl handle, kissed the skin beneath her jaw. While the handful of late-night regulars scrambled for the exits, Martina Lori just stood there balancing a tray of empty pint glasses and looking like she'd seen this movie before. The man holding the blade was Aloisio Toscano, the Iron Dawn of the East Coast, a man who'd burned entire bloodlines to ash before his morning espresso. He expected her to scream. He expected trembling. Instead, she met his gaze with the kind of cold that made winter seem warm, shifted her weight slightly, and whispered 4 words that would mark her as either the bravest woman in Jersey or the most suicidal. Don't dare me. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, can I just say, that moment gave me chills. A waitress staring down the Iron Dawn? If you're already on the edge of your seat, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Are you Team Martina already? I love building this community of people who appreciate stories about women who refuse to be victims. Let's discover together why Martina whispered those 4 dangerous words. Now, let's explore the rusty anchor. The fog off the Hudson didn't bring relief. It just made the rot harder to escape. It was 1:47 a.m. on a Thursday, and the Rusty Anchor, a dive bar wedged between a pawn shop and a fish processing plant on the Jersey docks, was down to its last few souls. The Budweiser sign in the window flickered Morse code for "Get out while you can." Martina Lori wiped down the bar top for what felt like the 100th time that shift. She was 24, with the kind of exhaustion that lived in the marrow, eyes that had watched everything burn once, and hands that knew how to make things disappear. She wasn't hunting for chaos. She was hunting for invisibility, for enough cash to relocate her sister Sophia, and maybe for one full night's sleep without the training kicking in. But chaos has a way of hunting people who've been soldiers. The door didn't open, it announced. The hinges groaned like a confession, and the temperature in the room dropped 5 degrees. 4 men entered. The 3 flanking positions were granite in expensive overcoats, their eyes performing threat assessments like it was breathing. But it was the man at the center who made the oxygen scarce. Aloisio Toscano. Even Martina, who'd spent 3 years perfecting the art of not knowing anything, recognized the face. Aristocratic features carved from Carrara marble, eyes the color of old blood, and a charcoal suit that cost more than the entire bar's liquor inventory. He didn't walk. He claimed every floorboard a conquered territory. He was the head of the Toscano Syndicate, currently orchestrating a consolidation war that had turned the eastern seaboard into a chessboard painted in red. He chose the booth in the corner, the one with sight lines to both exits and the kitchen. His enforcers, Dante and Enzo, positioned themselves by the dartboard and the jukebox. Martina exhaled through her nose, tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear, and grabbed a rag and a menu. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. "Menu," she said, sliding it onto the scarred wood. "We've got whiskey, cheaper whiskey, and beer that tastes like the river. The kitchen closed an hour ago. Your call." Aloisio looked up from checking his phone. He paused, genuinely caught off guard. Usually, people stammered. Usually, the owner, a nervous wreck named Mickey, would materialize with apologies and free drinks. "You know who I am?" Aloisio asked, his voice smooth as aged grappa with a razor blade hidden in it. "I know you're sitting in my section, which makes you a customer," Martina replied evenly. "Drink." Aloisio studied her with the focus of a man who'd built an empire on reading people. No dilated pupils. No tremor in her fingers. Just bone-deep fatigue and the faintest edge of irritation, like he was a regular who never tipped. Martina's hands moved on autopilot, pouring whiskey into 3 glasses while her mind flickered to a different bar, a different life. She was 12 again, standing in her father's study in Providence, learning to field strip a Glock before she learned algebra. Vincenzo Lori didn't raise a daughter. He forged a weapon. Again, he'd said, not looking up from his newspaper. "Faster." Her fingers had trembled then. They didn't anymore. The training had been relentless, hand-to-hand combat disguised as dance lessons, tactical planning hidden inside chess games, surveillance techniques taught through people watching at cafes. By 16, Martina could disappear into a crowd, read a room in 3 seconds, and break a man's wrist in 2 moves. She was her father's insurance policy, his secret ace against the families that circled like sharks. Then came the fire. She still smelled it sometimes, gasoline and burning oak, her mother's perfume turning to smoke. The Calabrese family had sent a message that night, painting it in flames across their colonial in Federal Hill. Martina had survived because her father shoved her through a basement window, his last words not "I love you," but "run. Be no one." She'd crawled through the November rain, watching her entire world collapse into embers, and made herself a promise. The girl who knew 30 ways to kill a man died in that fire. Only the ghost walked away. 3 years she drifted through New Jersey's industrial underbelly. Waitressing in Neptune, bussing tables in Hoboken, cleaning rooms in Atlantic City. She changed her hair, adopted a slight limp, wore clothes 2 sizes too big. She became invisible, just another exhausted woman grinding through double shifts, unremarkable as fog. The rusty anchor was supposed to be her last stop before disappearing completely. She'd saved almost enough to move Sophia to Portland, to buy them both new names and a life where the past stayed buried. Martina set the whiskey glasses on Aloysio's table, her reflection ghosting across the dark liquid. For a moment, she saw her father's eyes staring back, disappointed that she'd chosen survival over vengeance, over legacy. "Anything else?" she asked Aloysio, her voice carefully flat. But even as she said it, she felt the old instincts firing. She'd already cataloged his men's weapons, identified the exit routes, calculated the angles. 3 years of playing dead, and her father's training still pulsed beneath her skin like a second heartbeat she couldn't silence. The ghost was tired of haunting herself. Aloysio came back 3 nights later, alone this time, which was either a power move or a death wish. Martina was refilling the ice bin when the door opened at exactly 2:13 a.m., after last call, after Mickey had stumbled home drunk, after the fog had turned the docks into something from a ghost story. "We're closed," she said without turning around. "The sign says open 24 hours. His voice cut through the empty bar like expensive cologne through diesel fumes. "The sign's been broken since 2019. Martina straightened, ice scoop still in hand. "What do you want, Mr. Toscano?" He sat at the bar this time, not the booth. Closer. More intimate. His suit was different, but equally pristine, navy this time, with a tie that probably cost more than her car. "I want to offer you a job." Martina laughed, sharp and mirthless. "I've already got one. Tips are terrible, but at least nobody's trying to recruit me into organized crime." "I'm not recruiting you into anything." Aloysio folded his hands on the bar top, and she noticed his knuckles, scarred, despite the manicure. "I'm offering you a consultancy position. Security assessment. $20,000 a month cash." She should have said no immediately. Should have thrown him out, called the cops, run. Instead, she heard herself ask, "Why me?" "Because 4 nights ago, while my men were scanning for threats, you clocked the Bratva spotter across the street before any of us did." He tilted his head slightly. "You checked the exit routes, identified concealed carries on 2 of my bodyguards, and positioned yourself with perfect sight lines to the kitchen and front door. That's not waitress instinct. That's training." Martina's blood went cold. She'd been so careful, so invisible for so long. "I don't know what you're talking about." Martina Lori, daughter of Vincenzo Lori, former consigliera to the Marchetti family. Presumed dead in the Federal Hill fire, 2021. Aloysio's eyes were flat, assessing. "You've been a ghost for 3 years. Impressive. But I don't need another killer. I have plenty of those. I need someone who sees what others miss. Someone with no pulse when everyone else is panicking." She gripped the ice scoop hard enough to hurt. "And if I say no?" Then you keep pouring drinks and looking over your shoulder for the rest of your short life. He slid a burner phone across the bar. The Calabrese family just expanded into Jersey. They'll find you eventually. Question is whether you want to face them as a waitress or as someone with the Iron Dawn's protection. The phone sat between them like a loaded gun. Martina spent 2 days staring at that burner phone before she finally called. Aloysio's instructions were simple: meet him at Carbone's, an Italian restaurant in Newark where the politicians ate pasta and pretended not to see the mobsters 2 tables over. She arrived 20 minutes early, wearing the only dress she owned that didn't smell like fryer grease, and immediately wanted to leave. The chandeliers alone probably cost more than her annual salary. She didn't belong here, surrounded by white tablecloths and wine lists thicker than her lease agreement. Aloysio was already seated, flanked by Dante and Enzo. He stood when he saw her old-world manners wrapped around new-world brutality and gestured to the chair across from him. "You came." "I'm here to tell you no in person," Martina lied, sliding into the seat. But her eyes were already working, cataloging the room with the efficiency her father had beaten into her muscle memory. Couple at table 4, anniversary dinner. Businessman at the bar, 3rd drink, wedding ring 10 line. Waiter by the kitchen, ex-military from the posture. 2 of Aloysio's men at the entrance. 1 by the restrooms. And there, table 7, corner seat. Navy jacket, newspaper held too high, hasn't turned a page in 6 minutes. Watching Aloysio's reflection in the wine glass pyramid. Her pulse didn't change. Her expression didn't flicker. But her hand moved to her water glass, angling it just slightly. "You have a tail," she said quietly, taking a sip. Table 7. Navy jacket, brown shoes. Probably armed, definitely surveillance. "He's been burning the same page since I walked in." Dante's hand moved toward his jacket. Aloysio stopped him with a gesture so subtle Martina almost missed it. "You sure?" Aloysio asked, his voice conversational, discussing the weather. "Check his reflection in the glass pyramid behind you." He hasn't looked at his phone once. Nobody sits in a restaurant for 30 minutes without checking their phone unless they're working. Aloysio smiled then, sharp and predatory. He made another small gesture. Enzo stood, walked past table 7, accidentally bumped the chair. The man's hand went to his waistband, trained response, weapon check, before he caught himself. Enzo returned to position. Aloysio leaned back, studying Martina like she was a chess piece that had just moved in an unexpected direction. "My men have been with me for 15 years. They didn't see him. They were looking for threats. I was looking for patterns." Martina met his gaze. "Waitresses learn to see the customers who don't act like customers." "When can you start?" The warehouse in Elizabeth smelled like rust and old secrets. Aloysio arrived at dawn in a town car that cost more than the building, still wearing $1,000 shoes that had never touched anything dirtier than marble. Martina was waiting in cargo pants and a tank top, her hair pulled back tight. She'd spent the week embedded in his security detail, watching his routines, identifying his weaknesses. The coup was coming. She could feel it in the nervous energy of his underbosses, see it in the way certain soldiers avoided eye contact. Someone was going to move on the Iron Dawn, and when they did, it wouldn't be clean or honorable. "Take off the jacket," she said. Aloysio raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me? Your enemies aren't going to challenge you to a duel at 20 paces. They're going to corner you in a parking garage or a bathroom or somewhere your bodyguards can't reach." She circled him slowly. "You need to know how to fight dirty when the expensive suit can't protect you." He removed his jacket, folded it precisely, set it on a crate. Even in shirt sleeves, he looked like he belonged in a boardroom, not a bloodbath. "First lesson," Martina said, moving behind him. "Someone grabs you from behind in a hallway. What do? I don't get grabbed." "I have." She locked her arm around his throat, tight enough to make her point. "You got grabbed. Your men are dead or paid off. It's just you and someone who wants you suffocating on your own tie. Now what?" For a moment Aloisio went rigid, his pride warring with survival instinct. Then he moved wrong, too high, too much reliance on upper body strength. No. Martina released him, stepped back. You fight like someone who learned in a gym. Street fighting isn't about honor or technique. It's about making them regret touching you. She demonstrated, swift and brutal, heel to instep, elbow to solar plexus, fingers to eyes. Pain, shock, escape. In that order. They drilled for 3 hours. She taught him how to use a pen as a weapon, how to break a grip using joint manipulation, how to turn a stairwell into an advantage. She stripped away his aristocratic polish layer by layer, revealing something rawer underneath. By the end, Aloisio's shirt was untucked, his knuckles scraped, his hair disheveled. He looked less like a Don and more like a man who'd crawled out of the same gutter as his enemies. Again, he said, breathing hard but steady. Martina almost smiled. Maybe he'd survived this after all. Maybe he'd survived this after all. But survival in this world requires more than just learning to fight dirty. If you're feeling the tension building between these two dangerous souls, you need to know that everything is about to escalate. The Iron Dawn just learned to fight from a ghost, but the real question is, can a ghost learn to trust a monster? Make sure you're subscribed, because what happens at the charity gala will redefine everything you thought you knew about power and partnership. The next scene is going to show you why sometimes the most lethal alliances are forged in warehouse dust and blood. The gown was midnight blue silk that cost more than Martina had earned in 6 months of slinging drinks. It fit like it had been designed for her body specifically, which it had, because Aloisio didn't do anything halfway. She stared at her reflection in the hotel suite mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. I look ridiculous, she muttered, tugging at the neckline. You look dangerous, Aloisio corrected from the doorway. He was in full formal regalia, tuxedo that made him look like old money and older sins. Which is the point. The Baldini family is hosting this charity gala. Half the East Coast families will be there, circling like sharks, waiting to see if I'm weak enough to take down. Martina turned, and the dress moved with her like liquid shadow. So I'm what, arm candy? A distraction. You're a message. He crossed to her, adjusted her diamond necklace on loan, probably worth a small country. You're the woman who stands next to the Iron Dawn and doesn't flinch. It'll make them wonder what you know, what you're capable of, why I trust you enough to bring you into the lion's den. She felt the familiar weight against her inner thigh, the ceramic blade she'd insisted on, sewn into a custom sheath beneath the silk. The dress might be a costume, but the knife was real. The ballroom at the plaza was everything Martina hated: crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, people wearing their wealth like armor. She recognized faces from FBI-wanted posters mingling with senators and CEOs, everyone pretending the blood on their money had dried clean. Aloisio's hand rested on the small of her back, possessive but not controlling. She could feel eyes tracking them, assessing, calculating, wondering. Antonio Baldini himself approached, silver-haired and serpent-smooth, his smile never reaching his eyes. Aloisio. Who's this lovely creature? Martina Lori, Aloisio said, and she caught the flash of recognition in Baldini's face. He knew the name, knew her father. My consultant. They danced because refusing would show weakness. Martina moved through the waltz on autopilot, her father's voice in her head: always know your exits, always keep your weapon hand-free. She spotted 3 potential threats, 2 concealed carries, and 1 server who moved like former Spetsnaz. You're scanning, Aloisio murmured against her ear. Someone here wants you dead. Probably several someones. And yet you're still dancing with me. Her hand tightened slightly on his shoulder. The knife cuts both ways, Don Toscano. His laugh was low, genuine, dangerous. That's why you're here. The call came at 3 a.m., 3 days after the gala. Martina was in the safe house in Hoboken, reviewing security footage, when her personal phone, the one only 2 people had the number to, buzzed with a video call from a blocked number. Her sister's face filled the screen. Sophia, 17 and terrified, duct tape across her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Behind her, concrete walls and industrial lighting. A basement. A tomb. "Hello, Martina." The voice was familiar. Carmine Russo, Aloysio's underboss, his second-in-command for the past decade. The camera panned to show his face, all false sympathy and real ambition. Or should I say, the ghost of Vincenzo Lori's daughter? Martina's hand didn't shake. Her voice came out flat dead. "Where is she?" "Somewhere very uncomfortable. But she can walk out of here unharmed if you do exactly what I say." Carmine moved closer to the camera, his smile a knife wound. "Tomorrow night, Aloysio has a meeting at the yacht club. Private. Just you and him for security. You're going to put 2 bullets in his head, walk away, and your sister gets delivered to whatever new life you've been planning." "Why me?" "Because you're close enough that he won't see it coming. Because you're good enough to disappear after. And because," he grabbed Sophia's hair, yanked her head back, making her whimper through the tape, "you don't have a choice." The call ended. Martina sat in the darkness for exactly 90 seconds, letting the panic come and go like a wave, then drowned it in ice-cold calculation. Carmine thought he knew her, thought she was still the desperate woman slinging drinks, willing to do anything to protect her sister. He didn't know she'd spent 3 years learning to be someone else. She pulled up her encrypted contact list, found the number Aloysio had given her for emergencies only. He answered on the first ring. "We have a problem," she said. "Carmine Russo has my sister. He wants me to kill you tomorrow night." Silence. "Then, are you going to?" "No. But he doesn't know that yet." Her mind was already racing, building the framework of something dangerous and desperate. "How much do you trust me, Don Toscano?" "Enough to hear what comes next." "Then let's give him exactly what he's expecting. Right up until we don't." The yacht club meeting was a decoy. The real trap was 3 miles south, in the industrial maze of the Bayonne docks where Martina had spent 3 years learning every shadow, every abandoned warehouse, every rusted container that could hide a body or save a life. Carmine took the bait like a starving fish. His men had been tracking Martina's phone, watching her movements, seeing exactly what she wanted them to see: a woman going through the motions, preparing to betray her boss, leading Aloysio to the slaughter. What they didn't see was the second phone, the encrypted network, the coordination happening in frequencies they weren't monitoring. Martina stood on Pier 19 at midnight, wearing her old waitress clothes, looking small and alone under the single flickering streetlight. Aloysio was 50 feet behind her in the darkness, playing dead man walking. His loyal soldiers, the ones Carmine hadn't corrupted, were scattered through the containers like ghosts. Carmine arrived with 8 men, their headlights cutting through the fog. He climbed out smiling, confident, already counting his crown. Sophia was shoved out next, still bound, still terrified. "Smart girl," Carmine called out. "I knew you'd see reason. Family first, right?" Martina raised the gun, Aloysio's own weapon, the one she was supposed to use on him. "Let her go first. After. Show me the body, then your sister walks." This was the moment. The pivot point. Martina turned, aimed at the darkness where Aloysio waited, and fired 3 times. The muzzle flash lit up the night. A body fell. Carmine laughed, triumphant. "See? Not so hard." Now. The lights came up. All of them. Every container, every warehouse, every vehicle Martina had positioned over the past 3 days. The docks became a stage, and Carmine's men were suddenly exposed, surrounded, outgunned. Aloysio stood up from where he'd fallen, brushing concrete dust off his jacket. The blood pack under his shirt had burst perfectly. He smiled like a shark. "The thing about ghosts," Martina said, gun now trained on Carmine, "is we know how to play dead." It was over in 90 seconds. Carmine's men, realizing they were in a kill box, dropped their weapons. The ones who didn't learn why you don't corner desperate men on their own territory. Martina walked to Sophia, cut her free, held her sister while she sobbed. Over Sophia's shoulder, she met Aloysio's eyes. The ghost had stopped running. Now she ruled the graveyard. The problem with cleaning house was that you never got everyone. Carmine had a cousin in the Baldini family, Marco, a man with more ambition than sense and access to military-grade poison. He made his move 2 weeks later at the victory celebration aboard Aloysio's yacht, the Fortuna, anchored off Sandy Hook. Martina saw it in Marco's eyes before the champagne even touched Aloysio's lips, the flash of satisfaction, the premature victory. She was across the deck in 3 strides, knocked the glass from Aloysio's hand. It shattered against the polished wood, expensive bubbles mixing with something that smelled faintly of almonds. Cyanide derivative. Fast acting. Lethal in minutes. Get below deck, she told Aloysio. Now. Marco's hand went to his jacket. So did 3 others, his men, scattered among the celebrating soldiers, wolves in sheep's designer suits. Martina's gun was already out, trained on Marco's center mass. Don't. Her voice cut through the music and laughter. Marco smiled. You're outnumbered, Waitress. Count again. Dante and Enzo had already moved into position, flanking Marco's men. But there were still too many variables, too many civilians, too much ocean with nowhere to run. This had to end fast and quiet. Martina shot out the deck lights. Darkness swallowed the yacht. She moved on instinct and 3 years of her father's training, muscle memory sharper than thought. The first guard went down with a crushed trachea, silent and permanent. The second caught her elbow in his temple, unconscious before he hit the deck. Gunfire erupted. Screaming. Chaos. Martina used it, became part of it, a ghost in the blackness. She found Marco trying to reach the speedboat. Her knife, the ceramic blade from the gala, always with her now, found his kidney. Not fatal, but incapacitating. Where's the antidote? She hissed. There isn't. She pressed harder. Then you die slow. He broke. Told her. Inside jacket pocket, blue vial, activated charcoal suspension. Insurance in case of accidental exposure. Martina left him bleeding on the deck and found Aloysio in the galley, already showing symptoms, elevated heart rate, dilated pupils. She forced the antidote down his throat, then her nursing training took over. She monitored his vitals, controlled his breathing, kept him conscious while the charcoal absorbed the poison. 20 minutes later, the Coast Guard arrived to flashing deck lights and bodies. Aloysio sat up slowly, color returning to his face, and looked at Martina like he was seeing her for the first time. You're not my consultant anymore. She tensed. You're my partner. The rusty anchor looked smaller than Martina remembered. 3 months had passed since the yacht, since Marco's failed coup, since she'd stopped pretending to be nobody. The neon sign still flickered its dying Morse code, the door still groaned like a confession, but now she saw it differently, not as a hiding place, but as a beginning. Mickey was behind the bar, wiping down the same scar which she'd cleaned 1,000 times. He looked up when she entered, did a double take at the woman in the tailored coat and expensive boots. Martina? Jesus, I thought you were dead? Disappeared? Witness protection. She smiled, pulling an envelope from her jacket. None of the above. I'm here to make you an offer. The paperwork took 20 minutes. Mickey signed with shaking hands, probably wondering if refusing was an option. It was Martina wasn't her father, wasn't the monster she'd been trained to be. But Mickey was drowning in debt and bad decisions, and she was offering him a lifeboat with a number that made his eyes water. When he left, Martina stood alone in the empty bar. She ran her hand along the counter, remembering the woman who'd hidden here, who'd poured drinks and kept her head down and believed that invisibility was the same as safety. The door opened. Aloysio entered, surveying the space with the same analytical eye he applied to everything. He'd wanted to send lawyers, accountants, people to handle the transaction. She'd refused. This she needed to do herself. Sentimental, he asked, sitting at the bar. Practical. Martina poured 2 whiskeys from the top shelf, her bar now, her liquor. Sophia needs a legitimate business to run while she finishes school. Can't have the Iron Dawn's partner's sister slinging drinks in someone else's dive. And the rusty anchor becomes a front, a meeting place, a safe house. She slid him the glass. Everything it already was, just honest about it now. Aloysio raised his drink. To new beginnings. To old ghosts finally resting. Martina clinked her glass against his, felt the burn of expensive whiskey, the weight of decisions made and accepted. Outside, the fog rolled in from the Hudson, but for the first time in 3 years, Martina wasn't disappearing into it. She was standing in the light, fire and all, exactly where she belonged. The girl who died twice had finally learned to live. What an absolutely incredible journey we've just experienced together. Martina went from hiding in the shadows to standing in the light, from serving drinks to serving justice. If you loved this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of survival, redemption, and unexpected alliances. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And I have to ask, what was your favorite moment? The knife scene? The warehouse training? Or that final confrontation on the yacht? Comment below and let's discuss. Your engagement means everything to this channel. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story.